Hello, and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. If somebody asked you, what have you learned in your time doing philosophy here, reading and reflecting on these texts with us here, how would you answer them? If someone made the claim that all of this work in philosophy that you've been doing has been a waste of time, because essentially, philosophy is just about personal opinion. It's just about different beliefs that people have. You don't have to develop any discipline or skill in exploring ideas or communicating them to others, because anybody can say what they feel. And if your own personal beliefs and opinions are just what you feel, then what's the point of philosophy? What would you say to them? If somebody said, well, this stuff you've been doing in philosophy, seeking truth about yourself, truth about reality, truth about the problems that you face, so maybe you can solve them. It's a waste of time. So all we can really do is have some positive thinking. Just believe hard enough in something and it will be true. So if you have a problem, just believe harder. There's definitely no understanding different from personal beliefs. Because really, if something seems true to you, then that's your truth. And if somebody else thinks something different, well, that's their truth. And they only think that way because it seems true to them. So if anything is true, so long as it seems true, or if anything is true so long as you believe it, then truth is just whatever it seems to whomever it seems. So there is no objective reality or understanding, and therefore there's no objective meaning to reality, purpose for life. There's no actual development you can go through as you can participate in higher levels of truth. Meaning is whatever you want it to be, because that's your opinion. That's just your belief. What would you say to them if they were open to some sort of reflection or dialogue? Perhaps you meet up for coffee at some cafe and you have to talk about something. What would you say to them? By the way, could one thing you say to them be, oh, this statement about there being no truth and everything being about opinion, does that also apply to what you just said? Are you making a truth claim that there is no truth? What does that say about your idea? Oh, and by the way, the fact that you get upset when somebody says there is an objective truth and it's our moral, for our own justice and goodness and ethical for how we act in the world, it's our own moral and ethical responsibility to seek truth and remove the false beliefs that we carry that cause our bad actions. When somebody says that, you seem to get mad. You seem to get very upset. You seem to care a lot about convincing that person or convincing yourself that that isn't true, because there is no truth. There are no false beliefs we have an obligation or responsibility to uncover and remove, because beliefs are the height of truth. Why do you get so upset? If what you claim is everything is just a personal opinion, then isn't that opinion just as true as yours? Why do you get upset and want to argue against it? Might you also say, well, If you're in favor of beliefs over truth and understanding, because there is no truth and understanding, everything is a matter of belief, why did you pick your religion? If religion means to be bound by a saving belief, by definition, nothing else. The word religio means to be bound by a saving belief. If you think it's rude to judge religion or particular religions because everyone's entitled to their own belief, didn't you pick one? The fact that you picked this religion, your religion, doesn't it mean that you actually did judge religion and you did judge those other religions to be less true than the one you picked? What does that say about your idea that people shouldn't judge religion? It's impious. It's impolite. But isn't that a judgment when you picked one? So you did judge them to be false. Interesting. Might you also say, by selecting a religion to be a part of a belief-based clan and even identify with it if you call yourself a Christian, that's who I am, a Jew, a Muslim, a Mormon with my magic underpants. Gunnar. Haven't you made a decision that it's better to believe in a religion than not? Is that a decision? Is that a judgment? What does that say about your position that all opinions and beliefs are equal? And that we shouldn't judge? If you are judging, it's better to have a religion than not, or this religion is better than those others. So those are some things you might say to your friend with that position. How might that go? What might they respond with? Well, you don't have to guess, because that's where we are in the text.
If you don't know, now you know.
And now you know.
Off the perky, call me Kirky.
We're all off the perky, call us all Kirky in here. So that's where we're on the text, so let's jump in. Here we are in our cafe. You may hear the people talking in the background of the cafe. Sound design. So, we have Joseph with this position that all is relative to belief. So that's the person that we're referring to. Sorry, Harry. Joseph is the person who has been in a community like the one we have here, exploring ideas for some time, learning about the dialectic, the way of exploring ideas, learning about the self-logos, the terms that we use the dialectic with, and also the map of intelligibility, the path we can walk while we explore truth and meaning, following the logos. So, the first question I asked you was asked of Joseph here. What are you getting out of this philosophy stuff? And Joseph's way of answering is to lead him through a dialectic. Ask questions that encourage Harry to reflect on the most significant idea that he is carrying that affects him. And to guide that reflection. Harry realizes that he has been defending his own personal belief that everything is relative, and says, hang on a second. You've turned the tables around. You were going to tell us what has been happening around here. And now look at this. You have us defending our views while you get off the hook. And he tries to pull Aaliyah in. Say, you are leading me through these questions that will force me to conclude about a belief that I don't want to conclude about, because if I conclude that it's false, that could be extremely challenging to my whole identity, that this belief that I'm associated with or identify with turns out to be false, and that would require a lot of courage to let go of and allow myself to be myself, having given up this belief. So instead of concluding, he runs behind his girlfriend and says, hey, why don't you bring in Miss Aaliyah here? And Aaliyah says, hey, just when I was getting to enjoy this, you pull out. To encourage him to stay in the dialogue. So, interesting use of her feminine wiles to encourage the man to stay with the dialectic, stay in the conversation, keep following the logos. Joseph says, hey, remember the start of this? I was hanging out with my friends in this cafe, and the strange man came up to us and said, hey, actually, let's read it. You guys it's unlikely that you all will ever rise above humor. So we're all having fun and joking around, but since we lacked a certain discipline in our relationships, in our thoughts maybe, in how we communicate, we will never rise above humor. What a thing for a stranger to say to a group of people having fun. And we laughed, says Joseph. Oh, Joseph is the guy with the hat. What's the need for discipline to say what we feel? Now, what's interesting is that this was all done in a spirit of fun. But some of us began to wonder just where this discussion was going when he said that unless we learn to explore ideas in a certain way, we would never be able to reach understanding, let alone, much less, understand one another. Why is a certain level of discipline required? Why is a certain method to explore ideas required to understand yourself and each other? He goes on to say, there's another thing. Not just discipline, not just a structure or method, but we have to also give up or see through what we believe in. And if we can't do that, it's unlikely we can ever reach a deeper understanding of anything else either. And masking his seriousness behind a bit of playfulness, he said he would offer a free cup of coffee to those who would prove him wrong. On one condition, that we would first have to understand him. So we raise our cups for the coffee. But also, isn't that very clever? If what he's saying is true, then they won't be able to understand his position unless they do it themselves. If belief blocks understanding, and understanding is a skill that has a method and requires a discipline, then they can't prove him wrong without doing those very things. So if what he's saying is true, And his condition is, first you have to understand my position, and that very understanding requires them to find out that then what he's saying is true, then they can't prove him wrong. What a clever man this is. Unless, of course, he is mistaken. And you can understand without discipline that can allow you to rise above humor, a structure and a skill, and you can keep all of the dumb beliefs that you picked up when you were 4 years old, stuck in a house, and you grew up with. So when Harry is getting a bit annoyed, Joseph says, hey, remember that guy at the beginning? He said that unless we see through a belief and give up the one that blocks us from understanding, that we can't understand. Well, Harry, what belief do you think that is? And for us, we have a bit of a hint because it's written up there. How can you understand if you think there is no understanding and everything is relative? This belief of yours, says Joseph, is the same belief that dominates not only your mind, but many others as well. Haven't we heard it a lot in our society? Hey, we can allow conservatives to exist as a political party that's actively murdering people for the fun and profit of billionaires, the exact opposite of what they're supposed to do, because that's just their belief. And if they can convince enough idiots to vote for them, then that's their belief too. And we should allow the ignorance of belief to kill people and destroy our planet and our species. What's the harm that could do with that? Equally so for capitalism, equally so for religion. So a very common belief dominating not only Harry's mind, but a lot of minds in our society currently. It's this belief that we are discussing that keeps us from appreciating and utilizing the furthermost reach of the intellect. Which is why we did a little review last time, and the blackboard's empty. But that's okay. There's some. Here it is. Here's the blackboard. We wanted to take with us what we learnt in our last reading from the last book. Now, we are trying to stay in this book, but he's saying appreciate the height of intellect, or the fullness of our intellect, the furthermost reach of our intellect. So it would be worth understanding what is meant by intellect. And we're able to recognize that fundamentally there are 3 levels of reality, you could say. The physical world of perception, or the world of becoming, where everything is in change, coming into being. But hey, there are principles that are universal. Gravity doesn't change. Gravity is always the case. Math, that's always going to be the case. The ideas of whole and part, same and different. When a different thing becomes the same as something, the idea of difference doesn't change. Difference will always be the same. Beauty. When a beautiful thing in the physical world becomes ugly, the idea of beauty doesn't change. So that realm that has scope over the physical realm, we call the realm of mind or being or the intellect. That's what we're after. So if we get our cognitive function, the way we make sense of the world, the way we think from the physical world, we're in the level of ignorance in philosophy, because our beliefs are derived from our sense perception, the appearance of people, in particular our parents when we were very young. Our beliefs give rise to, and also our society, our priest, imam, minister, rabbi, Mormon, pastor,
Gooners.
because they wear magic underpants and they do the soaking.
Gooners.
These are personal. So the idea that everything is relative to personal perspective or personal opinion would be pointing to this realm here. Beliefs and images. We call these people, conservatives and clergy or religious people often. But image-thinking people, people who react and respond to shapes and colors. That's a woman shape. That's bad because Joe Rogan says so.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
Or Donald Trump says so. Or Netanyahu, that's a Palestinian color. Netanyahu says that they're the devil. We should murder the children of them. Okay? Image thinking. So you could recognize, therefore, that the whole or the model are our beliefs and the activity, the image thinking, or the parts. Just as in the realm of mind, for mind to turn around and know itself in the non-physical sense, so turn away from your physical senses, that's called the penultimate spiritual experience, by the way. That's the eye of the soul, or ousia. And that's knowing in philosophy, called nous in the Greek, or capital K knowing. If that's the whole, then its activity is understanding. What we're discovering is our friend Joseph is using understanding to help Harry cross this green line from the personal to the transpersonal or universal. So, just as gravity is universal, we can see in our society and for our soul, the standard for a healthy society is to have universal principles reflecting the whole or model of all universal principles that are universally applied for universal benefit. Universal healthcare, universal legal system, universal income, universal wealth equality, all these things. That's the basic standard, very easy to understand. Also, corruption is the opposite. All corruption is to not use universal principles. My personal belief group or clan doesn't have to obey the law, so we can genocide the Palestinians, but if a Palestinian throws a rock at our tank, that's bad and we need to hang them to death because they're breaking the law. Billionaires, the same thing. The poor people have to pay taxes, but we billionaires don't. That's not a universal principle being universally applied and will not create our universal benefit. Same thing for our soul. So the movement from the personal to the transpersonal, crossing this line, and we are seeing, helping us to understand what is meant by, if we can't get rid of our beliefs, we'll be limited in our ability to participate in the intellect, be it understanding its activity or knowing reality itself. Mind minding mind, intellect knowing itself. Knowing. Now, we also recognize, well, hang on a second, if there is something experiencing knowing, we can also ask, what's the experiencer? Or if there's any kind of experience, it has to have a cause. So we could ask the question, hang on a second, is there another line to cross from the penultimate spiritual state of luminosity to the ultimate state of the clarity of self recognizing itself as pure seeing? Crossing the purple line. Now, in the last book, we talked about crossing this green line through six stages of enlightenment as the Buddhist Zen ox setting pictures. And we talked about crossing this line, similar or same structure, the Lama pictures, giving us two kinds of enlightenment stages. So while this is what we can recognize with understanding as the different expressions of self-knowing or functioning, and the name for the intelligibility or the understandability or knowability of reality is the logos. So if this is the logos of intellect and its distorted shadow humans create, giving us ignorance, and by virtue of us being human, we get our false beliefs that cause our problems, giving us the conditions to learn understanding and master an art as we follow the self-logos to know the self with understanding and that art in our back pocket. We can recognize if that's our purpose, then the kinds of sick beliefs that block us, the kind of sick ways of thinking or pathologos, sick logos, would have to be in categories that oppose any one of those stages. Meaning, of the kinds of beliefs and negative functioning that humans have, you could have the opposition to the physical world of parts. I'm not going to explore my image thinking because there is no such thing. Nothing really exists. Everything is Maya, illusion. Everything is the delusion deluding the deluded. That's called nihilism. And the image of that is a rock with a cross through it. So yesterday's episode is, what is nihilism? It's one of the 4 negative views or archetypal views that human beings can have. They're not just views, ways of being. So one of the 4 categories of human ignorance that block our participation in our journey through the logos. The movement from the ignorance to wisdom, crossing the green line, and wisdom to the self, crossing the purple line. Now, if you are okay with there being parts or some sort of activity in the physical world that's meaningful, but there's no whole, there's no paradigm. I might have images and you might have images, but there's no reason that you're racist and I'm not racist. There's no belief as a whole that gives rise to all of my racist shit, or all of your sexist shit, or all of the conservative injustice, or all of the religious injustice. Surely we can't understand it as a whole. There's no meaningful whole of our problems, there's no meaningful whole of our excellence, and there's no meaningful whole of our dreams. Our dreams are just chemicals firing and neurons and stuff. Neurons firing and chemical squirting. So that's an objection to this. How can you explore the cause of your problems if you don't think there is such a thing? How can you listen to the greatest guide that you have to help you hear your dreams if you reject it as a possibility? That's called materialism. Everything is just a rock. Or reductionism. You can reduce everything to its smallest component. Dreams are just neurons firing. Love and beauty is just serotonin squirting. Now, if understanding is what helps us, by having someone like Joseph, who is higher up this stage of cognitive development, hierarchical system of actual learning, not the bullshit hierarchies of racism and sexism and all that shit, the actual hierarchy of cognitive development, because not everyone's the same. There are fascist believers and Nazis and conservatives, capitalists and clergy. And there are philosophers who are better. Or people who care, people who have empathy. progressives. There are people who want to murder for fun and profit, and there are some people who want to stop that murder. They're not the same. It's very important we realize that it's not all relative to personal opinion. There is a hierarchy of development through which the better can help the worst, and we should demand the better rule us, because otherwise the worst will and currently do. And therefore, all problems are understandable and solvable in principle. The rejection of that, and therefore no need for war or punishment or murder or torture, all of this horse shit that sadists use to justify their injustice. The opposition to that, it's all relative. There is no hierarchical system of development. Everything is equal. Everything is of equal value. If you're a doctor and you've spent 10 years understanding medicine, you are equally as wise about medicine as the MAGA moron who hasn't done any work but just says no to everything. Notice, the religious and the conservatives, well, the conservative especially, don't offer any principles or policies that benefit. All they do is play grievances. You're bad, you're bad, you're bad. You want a library? No. You want universal income? No. You want to stop killing people? No. All they do is say no, which means it gives the moron believers who have no understanding, so long as it's a debate.
Perverts. Let's be honest, perverts.
Debate perverts.
Weirdo.
Debate weirdos. Well, I'm on equal footing. If everything is relative, my ignorant racist MAGA belief is equal and opposite to the medical professional, the expert. So long, I can't add anything about medicine because I don't know anything. But so long as I just say no to everything they say, then I can give the appearance that I'm on the same level. Because on what basis do I have any right to say no to Fauci or to vaccines or to universal healthcare? No right. So entertaining debate is to give credence to this extreme ignorance and harm by saying someone's stupid beliefs are of equal weight as someone's actual genuine understanding and genuine interest in reflection. Debate is just defending your personal ignorance, and you walk away more entrenched in that ignorance you've defended. It's the opposite of what we're here for, the dialectic. Therefore, all they can say is no. Without the understanding to build a bridge, all they can do is bomb bridges. Without the understanding to create universities, all they can do is bomb universities. And they currently do. So we can see this worldview that everything is relative to my opinions, and they're completely disconnected from your opinions, and never the twain shall meet. There's no crossover. Understanding can relate to anyone, because that's what understanding does. But if everything is just about belief, because it's an objection to understanding, then all you can do to solve problems is murder people to death, bomb people to death, genocide people to death, blow up the planet that we share. That's also the worldview of the major Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And you could even say it goes back further to Zoroaster, a philosopher before that. So, perhaps the most common, the worldview that we allowed to rule our world, and the most fucking dangerous. And that's the idea we're exploring today, or in this book. It's all relative. Now, if you can't see that, I am jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm just giving an overview of what we covered yesterday to understand what's nihilism and how it's a part within a set of four possible classes of ignorance human beings can have and why. Now, these are all classes of beliefs. Beliefs aren't themselves bad so long as you are not taking them literally. If you recognize that the human condition is to get certain beliefs from childhood in order to survive an upbringing where you are dependent on the beliefs of your family, your parents, they get to play king priest of the house because of our sick society where we allow children to be stuck in boxes with these people, with playing out their ignorance with impunity. Let's hope we grow up from that soon. We develop false beliefs and false images of ourselves that oppose fundamentally understanding. So any one of these blocks understanding. You can block understanding by saying nothing exists, so give up. You can block understanding by saying it's all just physical rocks. You can block understanding most violently with the it's all relative or the Abrahamic idea. And the final one, you might be open to parts of the physical world and holes in the physical world, and you might even be open to understanding, but you are opposed to the idea that understanding has a source. There is a whole or model of mind in that penultimate spiritual experience that's the source of understanding. That's called isms. So of the kinds of ignorance humans can have, it's the best because it allows for understanding. But it is dangerous because you can be tied to an ism. Marxism, socialism, these are good, and you can use understanding and create an understanding of how to meet material conditions and etc., etc. But you'll still be, to the extent you are divorced from the actual model of harmony, you are still influenced by your pathologos. So just as these cognitive functions of our development are all from the self-logos, following the self-logos back in order to return to the self-logos, so too these four fundamental classes of human ignorance are from the pathologos, the false belief about ourselves from childhood that we identify ourselves with. So these aren't just worldviews. I mean, they are worldviews that function, but at the heart of it, at the root cause of it, is an idea of self that opposes the true knowing of the self. So in principle, to cross this purple line from the intellect to the self, you have to not just give up these four classes of belief that oppose that development, but you have to give up the image of self as a whole and have an understanding of the pathologos. It's doable, but of course you can't do it if you have this worldview, because all of this is done through understanding. So of the four classes of human ignorance, nihilism, materialism, relativism, and isms, Mickey Mouse, because we make it up, like Mickey Mouse is made up. You won't be able to examine them through understanding if your worldview is defined by an objection to understanding, making this, it's all relative, the most dangerous in principle, blocking the very thing we need. So these are states of mind, so you're not just in one. So you can say, well, actually, there's Stoicism, which is a little bit of this, and a little bit of this, and a little bit of that, and okay, sure. Sometimes you're open to understanding, but Stoicism is to take the language of the intellect and remove it from the intellect and apply it only to the physical world. So people, this is a modern philosophy. Courage is having a cold bath and doing push-ups and eating a bull testicle.
I'm eating the testicles of this bull, and I'm eating it raw bull. This is raw. balls.
And they want to eat the raw bull testicles.
Bull testicles. Bull testicles. I'm eating the testicles. Bull testicles. Bull test. Bull test. Bull test. Bull test.
So you can say, well, it's a kind of a rejection of actual mind and understanding that's open to a little bit of an understanding, but it's more about materialism. So it's a little bit of this, a little bit of this. And also they say, well, there isn't actually, without the intellect, then there's no meaning. If it's all just physical experiences, then you make up your own meaning, and it's to eat all the bull testicles and have a cold plunge and do MMA and become a grind set billionaire. So a little bit of nihilism. But these would be the 4 central worldviews, all within the primary cause of human ignorance, the pathologos. So the pathologos is a kind of belief and has images. And within our pathologos, there are 4 categories, much like the 4 classes of man talked about in Plato's Republic. The philosopher king and 4 kinds of ignorance. Now, Plato doesn't have the pathologos, so he's missing that step. But that's okay. We can add it in. You can be wrong sometimes.
You know what? Suck my dick.
Oh my goodness. That's not appropriate. So, nihilism, one of 4 worldviews that are classes of ignorance and members within the set of the pathologos. While the non-ignorant worldview would be following the logos, or philodianoia, love of understanding. But also because that understanding is to philosophy is philosophia, the love of wisdom, which is just here. But we're saying philodianoia is even better than philosophy, because understanding not just takes you from ignorance to wisdom, like philosophy, but from wisdom to the self. And also, understanding is what can address and purify your own personal pathologos to cross the green line, and also understand and purify the principle of pathologos. That's called philosophical midwifery, done in conjunction with dream analysis. So it can perfect on 2 levels and purify on 2 levels, the specifics and the principle. Just as the self is the final principle, the ultimate principle. So philodianoia is the one true position, or spiritual method, or spiritual tradition. It's called being Homeric. Homeric is about addressing the pathologos, so we call it Hellenic, both. So philodianoia or Hellenic. You're either that, or you're in some combination of one of these 4, until you go through enough midwifery to give up or see through your own particular beliefs as what we are reading in this book. We have to give up our beliefs that prevent understanding ourselves and each other, but also ultimately we would need to give up any image of ourselves, because this self is beyond images. So, 4 possible worldviews of ignorance, 1 possible worldview of truth. The cause of the 4 ignorance is the pathologos. The nature of the true one is the self-logos, giving us 2 fundamental jobs: to master the self-logos and purify or give up the pathologos, and both of which is the functioning of the dialectic. Therefore, 2 primary necessary purposes for all human beings who want to be good or moral or ethical, and one activity that we can master as an art for both things. Hooray. Therefore, I'm outside. Whoops. Inside.
I've been a bad little girl.
Calm down, Emma.
Gooner.
Here we go. Therefore, hopefully now we can make sense of what Joseph is saying when he says, we have to see through a belief and give up the one that blocks us from understanding. It's all relative. But in principle, nihilism and materialism also. Of course, it's unlikely he'll be engaged in this conversation to begin with if he was a nihilist and thought, well, there's no meaningful activity, so why even talk? The loneliest of all positions. And why would you be discussing reasoning at all or using the mind if you're a materialist and think, well, we're all chemicals, so, you know, I just want to collect all the stuff. Become a capitalist, get all the physical things, and that's it. That's all what we can do here. So the one that blocks understanding seems to be this one that Harry personifies. This belief of yours is the same that dominates not only your mind, but many others as well. Hopefully we've demonstrated that. It's this belief we are discussing that keeps us from appreciating and utilizing the furthest most reach of the intellect. And hopefully we've demonstrate how to understand that as well. Intellect, of course, the realm of Sophia, wisdom, or knowing and understanding, Usia and Logos. But hey, you can even use that intellect to not only go from ignorance to wisdom, but from wisdom to the self. And also purify the false beliefs and the principle behind all false beliefs. So whether you're talking about the highest experience of the intellect in knowing or usia, or the highest functioning of the intellect to do all those things we just described, we can understand what it means that you can't participate in that if you are tied to a worldview that opposes that very functioning of the intellect. Isn't it interesting that the three major religions is this, the most evil? Not evil, because that would be their language, because evil is a personification of the bad team, and they are the good team. Everyone thinks they're the good team. But isn't it interesting that the most dangerous we allow to exist and be taught to children, indoctrinated into children? Makes you think, doesn't it? And I'm outside again. Now I'm inside. Now I'm at the board. Now I'm with the dudes at the table. It's this belief we are discussing that keeps us from appreciating and utilizing the furthermost reach of the intellect. Harry responds, I don't know if I'm going to like this or not. You may think I'm defending some position, but I don't believe I do. I just hold that there are no real positions in philosophy, only naive commitments to absurdities. So, you might be... See, a little bit of nihilism as well. A little bit. Maybe. A flavor, a sprinkle. Because they're not... You're not just in one of these. They're the four main categories, but you can move in and out of them. You may be able to argue better than I do, but that won't mean a damned thing, because I'll walk away believing what I've always believed, and so will you. We call that
Debate weirdo.
being a debate weirdo.
Debate pervert.
It's an awakening. Welcome to Sus.
I'm joy maxing, okay? And if I aura mog you because I'm joy maxing so hard, that just sounds like your cortisol levels are spiking for no reason.
We enjoy maxing here. Don't get your cortisol levels spiked. He's given the other guy bunny ears. Oh yeah, he is. I've made it so, you know how like on JRPG games, nice art by the way that you're sharing in the Discord. Like when there's a character talking, you'll see an image of the character talking. I did that. Because I care about everyone having a fun time. How are you doing? Now, debate, the opposite of dialectic. You come in to defend your ignorant beliefs and you walk away more firmly entrenched in your beliefs, which is why, speaking of Mormons,
Goon.
who goon with their magic
Gooner
underpants
bait.
and then doing
Some
soaking
goons and some gooners and some weirdos.
and some weirdos. That's why they send these 17-year-old Mormons door knocking. Not because they know anything, they know shit all. They've just been indoctrinated into nonsense. Not because it actually converts anyone. Imagine a full-grown adult answering the door and there's a 17-year-old saying, "You're an idiot. Your whole life has been a lie, and I know the truth. And it's this crazy garbage." That's complete horseshit, opposing all evidence and reason. Of course, no one's going to take them seriously, but they're being forced by the leaders to defend their position. It's not about truth. It's not about saving or converting people. It's about getting these children more indoctrinated by debate, walking away more entrenched in the false beliefs that they had to defend in this horseshit ritual. Child abuse. And that's all Harry knows, because we don't live in a culture that appreciates and utilizes the intellect of dialect, which is dialect. So all we know is debate. So we allow politicians to pretend they're arguing while they all scam everyone and blow up the world for their own fun and profit. We allow religious leaders to pretend they're arguing while they do the same. And capitalist CEOs pretend they're arguing while they do the same. It's a giant fucking scam. Debate is.
Debate pervert.
Debate pervert. But the beautiful Aaliyah to the rescue. Come save us, Aaliyah. Let me ask you something, Harry, if you don't mind a question or two. Ask, my dear. Anything at all, my dear. Harry, isn't believing in Christianity or any religion believing that one view is better than another? More than that, isn't believing in something admitting that it is better than having... Admitting that it is better to have something to believe in rather than nothing. So Mr. Don't Judge, by the way, can you see how helpful this it's all relative idea is for fascists? Don't judge me while I murder you, or steal your children, or murder your children, or exploit your labor. Don't judge me. Everything is relative. But aren't you making judgments when you pick your team, or you pick your religion, or you pick having a belief rather than not? Isn't that a judgment? And of course, speaking of team sports, we can see the response to a good question by someone in that ignorance. Hey, I thought you were on my team. Right? Whose side are you on? I thought you were only interested in going along with me, baby. I just thought of something, Harry. You care enough to strongly oppose Joseph's position. You get upset when your view that all is relative is challenged. Now, can you reconcile that with your own position? How can you be bugged? It's all relative, ain't it? Ooh, snap. Ooh. She jumped in here and said,
Bull testicles. Bull testicles.
bull testicles to you. Harry, so this is our question for today. How would you respond to these sorts of things? Yeah, it sure as hell is. Sure as hell is. Okay, so a little bit of a joke here. If it's all relative, that we can appreciate because we're so smart and clever. The it's all relative position, one of those four classes of human ignorance, is defined by an opposition to understanding, thus the challenge of this book. It's also the same view of the Abrahamic religions, the ones that invent the bullshit notion of hell to personify those that don't accept their own personal beliefs. So when Elias says, hey, why are you getting upset? In his position, isn't everything relative? He says, it sure as hell is. If you recognize it's all relative is the same position as the religions who believe in hell, then you can find it very funny. This is called philosophical humor, and it should make you say, because
My head is quite large and filled with secrets.
because our head is large and filled with secrets. See? It's funny.
Where's the joy? Where's the childlike wonder?
And we have fun.
This is why I love this channel, man.
Because we have fun. Right, Emma?
Making ice cream's a good and courageous thing. They're secretly turned on by it.
Who is? Who's turned on by it? Emma.
She's a moron. She's a bonked on the head individual, BHI.
I coined that.
Hey, don't call Emma a BHI. Right? Funny. Very funny. Whoops. And then... It sure as hell is, says Harry. And so I'm relatively bugged about my relative position. So what? It's your turn to be bugged. Or to shut up, woman. Oh, Harry, come on.
Don't be disgusting.
Don't be disgusting, Harry. No, you stay in as long as you can. Elia. No. And I'll come in when I want. It's not as easy as you thought it would be, is it? Oh. Aaliyah not being pushed around by the man. Well, I'm okay right now, so let's get on with it. Using her feminine wiles to stand up for herself and encourage the man to keep going. Which makes you think about other things sometimes.
I've been a bad little girl.
Calm down, Emma.
Do a poggers.
Gun.
So, Joseph. That's where we are. Then, let us return to the other point you raised, Harry. It is equally interesting, and it's likely to be related in some way to what we've done. Let me raise the issue in another context, just for some fun, and you may provide a way to understand it. It may provide a way to understand it. You say my position must be wrong since so many of your teachers and other authorities oppose it. And that some of them even go so far as to argue that to disagree with their position is, in itself, a mark that one is naive and unfit for mature intellectual reflection. Have I reflected your position accurately? So, where do we get beliefs from? If the model of understanding is the universal principles of intellect, where do our beliefs come from? Images of parental figures and authority figures. So so many of your teachers and other authorities oppose my position, and they even claim, hey, if you disagree with that, You are an idiot. You are not good enough to talk to us professors or talk to us parents. You're impious. You're a heathen. You're a heretic. You're a goyim. You're a whatever, non-MAGA. You're a woke. And so we don't even have to answer you because you're a radical left simply by disagreeing with them and their ignorant beliefs. So we're learning something about how beliefs come to be and how they function. Harry says, yeah. Well, suppose I was teaching a class in philosophy and I were to advance the idea that in mathematics, A times B does not always equal B times A, and that 2 times 3 is not always the same as 3 times 2. So let's put that on the board. What's he talking about? A universal principle. The ones that the capitalists, conservatives, and clergy don't do, which we call corruption, and is the cause of human injustice and harm. We are actually looking at a principle. A principle. Principle. That is a color. This one. A times B is equal to B times A. Or two times 3 is equal to 3 times 2. Right? And so what Joseph, I keep calling him Harry. What Joseph is saying is, what if I was your teacher and I told you that isn't the case? Someone in the math department would have a good laugh at your expense, I think, Joseph. That's for damn sure. Someone in the math department would have a good laugh at your expense. That's for damn sure. And in a similar way, suppose I were to advance the notion that the idea of experimentation in the sciences is folly and should be regarded as merely window dressing to confound fools. So he's taken down a principle of math. Now he's taken down the principle of or idea of experimentation in science. Oh, sit down. The same would go for those in the science labs. They'd have a good laugh at your expense. But apart from their having a laugh, is it not likely that they could present me with some reasoned explanations, demonstrations, and proofs that would challenge and possibly cause me to reject the laughable idea I was holding in class? So we've got the idea of reason, got the idea of demonstration, we got the idea of proof. So we're looking for a structure. Hey, when you are exploring an idea, can you give a reasoned explanation of what it is? Itself. Definition. The idea or the principle itself in relation to itself. Can you give a demonstration to explain it to someone? That thing you've just defined with reason, how does it function to another? And by the way, could you then break that functioning down into divisions that we could call a proof? To take those divisions together, that would be the proof. You could, from those divisions or explanations, find a key theme that you could synthesize as a result, that you can take back, so there's a single other. So while the divisions are other to other others, synthesize a single other that you can take back to that original idea you explained with reason as a proof. Conclusion. So what are we seeing? We're seeing that behind the things that we take for granted and acknowledge as what makes something true, why someone who comes into a math department, some religious by the way, there was a famous example of a religious conservative nut job doing this in a psychology class, just vomiting out their completely wrong and ignorant and unjustified personal opinions about gay people because the Bible says so. No, she doesn't read the Bible. She doesn't understand the Bible. And it's various different interpreters who say different things. Mark is not saying the same thing as Paul. And Paul is saying the opposite to what Jesus claimed to have said. So no, they don't read the Bible. They're just listening to their parental figures and early teachers. Now, because of the fascist society we live in currently, because we haven't woken up to this, she got the teacher fired and got some money from conservatives. See, understanding is bad. Just having beliefs that we tell you is good, says the fascist conservatives who are killing people, doing genocide, killing their own people in the streets. The exact definition of evil. Or not actual evil, the worst you can be. So normally, if you're not living under a fascist regime like conservatism, normally you would laugh at someone who comes in and says, well, I don't believe in math because the Bible tells me that math is the devil. My mummy says that. We would laugh at them. And the reason we would laugh at them as rational people is because we accept reasoned explanations, demonstrations, and proofs as ways of demonstrating truth. That's what university is about, supposedly. But what we're seeing is that the things that we take for granted as what demonstrates something as true and not mere opinion or ignorance actually are aspects within a greater whole. Just as we took all of the different worldviews that humans can have, all 4 kinds of worldviews or human ignorance other than Philodianoia, the 4 non-Philodianoia ones, and recognize that they are all aspects within the pathologos. Just as we recognize the 4 cognitive functions we move through in going from ignorance to wisdom are all within the logos. So too, the things that we use for reasoning are also 4. And what do you know? They're within the dialectic. What we had seen earlier was the method or meaning of our human existence, our highest functioning and our purpose to master the art of, as needed for finding truth and removing what's false. Isn't that interesting? We've all accepted that reasoned explanations are good, demonstrations are good, and proofs are necessary. Oh, they're all aspects of this. Does that help? First of all, is it interesting that the things that we find as, well, I'm hesitant to use the word common sense because ignorant people claim their ignorance is common sense too, but we take for granted as common sense these things as what we use to demonstrate truth. Isn't it interesting that they're all aspects of the same thing? Is that interesting? Does it make it easier to remember? Oh, and if our goal is to master the art of dialectic, by recognizing there are 4 parts within a greater whole, within a 5th idea, would it make it easier to use them to help yourself remove your problems and reach truth, or help others do the same, or understand yourself and your friends. To make it easier. And finally, is it interesting that 4 cognitive functions within a superior whole, 4 non-Philodianoia worldviews that humans can have that define human ignorance within a whole, 4 within 1. 4 within 1. 4 within 1. Is that interesting? Anyway. So, wouldn't they present me, says Josh, with some reasoned explanations, some demonstrations and proofs that would challenge and possibly cause me to reject that laughable view that I was holding in class? Ooh. Sure, I see what you want. You want equal time to show them this idea, that all positions are subjective and relative. Is wrong. You want to say that that is wrong. But you of all people ought to know. Alright, you want equal time to show them that this idea, be they mathematicians or scientists, that everything, that all positions are subjective and relative. There's no objective truth. You want to show them that that's wrong. But you of all people ought to know. They have as much right as anyone else to their personal views of this issue. Are you going for censorship, Joseph? By the way, isn't that what the fascists say? Hey, we're entitled to our personal view that we should kill all the Palestinians, that we should have all the billions of dollars, that we should blow up the planet that we share. And if you say we shouldn't post Nazi things on Twitter, then that's censorship. Make comedy legal again. Isn't that what they claim? Allow us to do harm, and if you challenge us, that's just censorship. Or rude, because you're saying that, hey, aren't we all entitled to our own opinions? What are you, a thought Nazi? What does Harry say to this? No, of course not. What I'm talking about are those views which are dropped into the lecture or conversation while talking about other things, yet uttered as if they were obvious and beyond question. Very much as any prejudice might be inserted into discussions. Indeed, when given a chance to address an audience, there are many people who can resist the chance to... There aren't many people who can resist the chance to interject their own personal views into their talk. For we both know that there are times when teachers will play philosopher in front of their classes, and are seldom, if ever, challenged on the shallowness of their views, including this very relativity position. And I'm not just talking about your professors, am I? So he's saying, hey, well, they're teaching this other stuff. They introduce their own idea that we're all entitled to our opinion. Right? Don't challenge the existence of conservatives that actively lie and harm and kill for personal profit and fun. They're entitled to their opinion. Religion, hey, everyone needs a belief. We're all too stupid to face the truth. And if those beliefs cause people to be manipulated by scam artists because they oppose truth and understanding and cause the extinction of our species, doesn't matter. What are you, a thought Nazi? Now, in a way, I'm interjecting my own personal views, but I'm not really. I am taking what we are reading and giving demonstrations and reasoning through the connection between the metaphor, because it's much easier to see it play out on a big scope within politics and religion and capitalism than it is to see within our soul. Because the soul is the important thing. Who knows whether enough people will wake up to the purpose of reality of the human condition and our human purpose in time to save our species from extinction. Who knows? But you can still do the work on your soul with whatever time you have here. And of course, there's a chat that you are welcome to challenge anything said, and there is a comment section on YouTube as well, and there's a Discord. So, and hopefully if you do have a opposing idea, you can practice organizing your thoughts within that dialectical structure, so it'll be a win-win.
There's only two options at the end of an argument. One, you're wrong, but now you always get to be right about that topic going forward, so you get to learn something, which is always a plus. Or two, you're right and you get to revel in being right.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win. All right. So a lot of things we take for granted that are slipped in by professors speaking about other things. And Harry says, "Now I know where you're going with all this. You believe that the idea that all is relative can be argued against. That's okay. That's your belief." And by the way, we've been talking today about how debate functions in this way. If you are someone who understands how to fix an engine, and you got some moron who has no understanding and has done no work or reading about mechanical engineering, and you agree to debate him, you are sneaking in the view that opinions and beliefs are equally as important as understanding. No, you don't debate with your mechanic if you know nothing. That's stupid. That's exactly what the entire religious and conservative movement does. All of the experts on Trump's whatever death cult panel are all idiots, sadistic idiots, who know nothing about medicine, but they head the medical department, as they cause hundreds of thousands of children to die because of all of their policies and decisions. Same thing, anyone on that, on any conservative group. So we're sneaking in the premise that, hey, by listening to your opinions as a fascist and debating them when you're not interested in understanding, you're not interested in truth, all you want to do is get legitimacy for your ignorant beliefs. By engaging in a debate with that person, you are slipping in this idea that everything is relative. Right? A MAGA moron's views on medicine is just as true as an actual medical professional because it's all relative to opinion. Of course we wouldn't want to slip that in. So you think that this idea that all is relative can be argued against. That's just your belief. But look, Joe, quite frankly, I don't know what I'd believe if you were right and that was true. This is important, as the Oracle tells us.
Personality maxing requires you to look inward on a deeper level, and it's
Harder to fix. Because then you have to make fundamental changes to who you are as a person. And it's because it feels like a much more core component of themselves that they don't want to change. Like, it's like, well, then if I change this,
If I change this, who am I? If it's a pathologos belief. Now we've been saying that, hey, we can still move through the cognitive functions from image thinking to belief to understanding to knowing to self. Those 4 into the 5th. The issue is when we identify with it, which is the and we can also move in and out of these 4 classes of ignorance that will come up and challenge us and seek to block us, because we're here to do both. The art involves mastery or perfection and purification. The issue is the leader of the team. The issue is the pathologos. when you identify yourself with any one of these four positions or your beliefs and images. I don't know what I would believe if I were to give that up. That's why philosophy, the true human way of being, the one way of being, different from these four many ways of being, requires courage and character. The courage to give up what's false and allow yourself to be yourself and think for yourself in every moment. Or even better, to follow the logos as it unfolds, which is even more effortless. So remember, there's two parts to an art. There's the truth and the humanness. So here he's representing the humanness. If you were right, I don't know what I'd do. Now, we talked about that 17-year-old Mormon.
Goon.
If that's his family, if he's stuck in that house with other Mormons, if that's his whole way of being, if that's what he does on the weekend, if that's his identity, it's impossible for him to give up his ignorance because he is stuck in that house with those people. Could mean exile, could mean death. He's not just challenging the religion, he's challenging the whole way of life of his parents. The meaning of their whole life. He's just a stupid kid. So, another reason why we need to have access to all material needs for all people, so you're not stuck under the tyranny of a capitalist boss or a parental figure or religious whatever. Anyway. I don't know what I'd believe if you were right and that were true. It just can't be true. It's just too weird to believe that all those who insisted that there's nothing going on in philosophy could be wrong. Like, why would they say that? You know what I mean? Now, I've been saying for a long time that there's nothing going on within academic philosophy because it's not philosophy. It's not philosophy by the definition. Love of wisdom. It's not the higher art of philodianoia, love of understanding, to cross both lines. It's a love of opinions or beliefs. Philodoxia, that's what Socrates says. I'm just repeating what Socrates told me, don't shoot the messenger. Many times. Phaedo, The Republic, this book, many times Socrates says, yeah, these academics, they're philodoxias. That's why they're doing debates on YouTube or in lecture theaters or amphitheaters for rich people who can afford to go. And they're not changing anything. We still have Nazis, we still have capitalism, we still have religion. They're not doing anything. Oh wow, you won a debate against a religious nut job. Big fucking deal. Did he change his mind? Did any of the religious people in the audience change their mind? Did we change any policies within society? Meow. But what we are doing here is meaningful, and what they are doing in California is too. Why would they say there's nothing going on in philosophy? You know what I mean? Aaliyah, would you care to explore these ideas? For I think our friend Harry might prefer to observe for the time being. Is that a part of the art? Recognizing he's hit his limit? He wasn't able to conclude or admit his idea was wrong, but the fact that he's saying that, is that a step? Is that a kind of self-reflection he's never done before? Usia? At least he's being brave enough to say that, I don't have the courage to change my mind. He may never have said that before in his life. So that could be a stage where you could introduce a pause, give him time to reflect, and take him off the hot seat. Remember, we're not just listening to what they're saying, We are learning the art ourselves. So, Harry might prefer to observe. And don't say in chat that we're putting Harry on the cuck chair.
Gun.
Because that's awful.
Fuck. You can be a gooner.
You can be a gooner.
Damn, you really are a gooner.
That's you in chat.
Goon.
He would prefer to observe for the time being, which is fine.
I hope he can post more Chinese milking type content / material.
I will not. That's weird.
Queen of gooning.
That's you. You're the queen of gooning.
Die mad about it, bitch.
Oh my goodness. All right. Harry. Actually, I would like to see Aaliyah take her turn with you. Oh my god. And then he says something like this. Come on.
Dude, suck my dick.
Oh my goodness.
You're a baby. You're a little baby.
I would like to see Aaliyah take her turn with you. I'm beginning to believe she knows more about this than she admitted. Ooh. Well, Aaliyah, do you want to inherit this discussion? Aaliyah says, yes and no. Explain, please, says Joseph. Well, I'm not sure that I have this belief, but I am beginning to think that one I have might be connected with it in some way. This may sound kind of strange, but I like to hear these kinds of talks because I'm kind of burnt out on what passes for entertainment. Great! Regular entertainment slop has burnt Aaliyah out. Boring for her. It's boring. No, I don't mean it that way. What I think can't really be separated from my being me. Do you understand? Look at it this way. When I hear discussions, I begin thinking that someone has the answer somewhere. It's got to have been researched by someone. Isn't there a book on it? So everything is relative to this or that expert's opinion. And those opinions are not very interesting anyway. That's what I think. So bored with the regular mainstream entertainment slop, which of course can't be, as the Rage Against the Machine says, there's a fine line between entertainment and war. Because, as Joseph just says, even whether you're a teacher teaching a class on something else, or whether you are creating a movie, you're slipping in your own personal views and opinions, including the idea that everything is relative. How many sitcoms have a philosopher? Ooh, 0. And a real philosopher. How many episodes of Friends does Phoebe come in here and say, oh, actually, let's explore the truth of this idea? You've got a conflict, Monica and Chandler. Let's explore it and come to a mutual understanding through the dialectic. 0 episodes of Friends. So therefore, modern entertainment can seem boring and stupid to those who are waking up. Because, as she's saying, you can't divorce your way of thinking from the subject or from your art. The art is like the artist. And so too, she can't separate her way of thinking from her way of being. But her issue is, she's not saying there is no truth, or there are no experts like Harry. But everything is relative in the sense that it's relative to some expert's opinion. So she's still in the realm of beliefs and opinions down the bottom here. So if you have a question, now I'm outside. Come back in the cafe, we're still talking.
Please end kink shaming on your show.
Crap.
Never.
Junk.
What?
Nobody should be watching this crap.
Calm down.
Fuck.
So when I begin thinking that someone has when I hear discussions, I begin thinking that someone has the answer somewhere. It has got to have been researched by someone. Isn't there a book on it? So everything is relative to this or that expert's opinion. And those opinions are not very interesting anyway. That's what I think. Interesting. And by the way, people who are familiar with philosophy through academic philosophy might be put off from this channel because the experts who write philosophy books, they're not interesting. They are, by definition, representing one of these 4 stages of ignorance, participating in a very limited way in understanding, and almost never crossing this green line. They're only talking about their own personal beliefs and images. They're just using big words to do so, and they've got a PhD behind them, which I've heard some call, the author of this book call, piled higher and deeper. Shit.
Oh, to be a man. Honorable. Filled with honor. And he is walking that talk, man.
Thank you.
You suck. You're ugly.
Hey! You can't say them two after each other.
Can't you just engage with anything in a way that's like meaningful ever? It's just boring, I think, is the problem. I'm just bored of it.
Aaliyah's just bored of it. She's bored of the bullshit entertainment and conversations from or opinions of experts that are not interesting. Oh, very good pull from our soundboard. Hooray. Joseph. A lot of what passes for knowledge is boring. Now, the word passes is playing the key role here, which I was just talking about. What passes for philosophy is boring as well. That's why we're the best channel on the internets. Some are saying. Right?
Funny, cool, and
Yes.
accents. This
you.
is. Come on.
Yeah, come on.
I'm too pure.
And Emma's too.
Hubba. I just want
Emma.
more testosterone to human body ratio,
Whoa.
and I'll finally be satisfied.
You're being a gooner.
Goons of gooners. That guy a suck.
Okay. What passes for knowledge is boring. Hopefully what we've been talking about today is fun and interesting and full of whimsy. I think so. I can go along with Harry's views, but not because I personally hold them, says Aaliyah. Let's just say I've heard them in my life, and I've never heard anyone silence them. At least not to my satisfaction. The humanness part. Joseph. And is that what you'd like to do? Silence them? I used to get into some discussions that were going along fine when some fool would throw out one of those catchphrases, one of those aphorisms, which is what I call them, aphorisms, and that either ends the discussion as everyone retreats into a silent stupor, or I end up feeling foolish for not being able to silence the fool, not being able to say to them,
Wrong. You're so wrong. But that's okay. We're all allowed to be wrong sometimes.
You're all allowed to be wrong sometimes. What seems true, and this was the catchphrase they'd throw out when I was having fun in that discussion. What seems true to anyone is true to him to whom it seems so. That was also my father's favorite aphorism, and he'd put an end to any discussion with it. And if that didn't work, he'd say, anyway, all good questions can only be answered by experts. And he would add, and you aren't one. Sure, I can represent those views, but if I get into any trouble, I'm sure going to ask for help. That's fine. But Joseph, before we begin, could you order something for me to go along with the coffee? So, we have Aaliyah entering the discussion, representing this, it's all relative, and it's just true if it seems true to you, personal truth. And you can only be an expert to answer, which is a good way of gatekeeping. Do we see the capitalist use that? Oh, supply and demand, and it's very complicated, and you can't ask us questions about why the billionaires have all the money, and you can't afford food and housing. No, it's complicated, it's the markets. And whenever they get put on trial or asked by a politician or a senator to explain themselves, well, it's complicated, and I'll have to get back to you, and I'll never get back to you, but I'll have to get back to you later, but I won't. Same old bullshit. So she's going to represent that position while not necessarily agreeing with it. So hopefully she can silence that most common and most dangerous of all of the four classes of ignorance that humans can be in. The one defined by opposition to understanding. And it's associated aphorisms or catchphrases or ways of being. So we're also learning to diagnose. Look at the way Harry functions. The words he used, that's just your opinion. Or you want me to come to that conclusion. I feel like I'm on trial. I feel like I'm doing some exam. Hey, Aaliyah, you answer it. Who are you to say, rather than what is to say, not who. Everything is true to whomever it seems true is a catchphrase. So we see how Harry functions, the key words he uses, how he explores an idea, how he relates to people he talks to, how he relates to his girlfriend. Would you tell your girlfriend to shut up if she was someone like Aaliyah, interested in understanding, exploring ideas, finding truth, and bored by mainstream slop? And also the key catchphrases or aphorisms. It's just true. All truth is just true to whomever it seems true. Or you can't. Another way of silencing the very purpose of human existence, to practice and master the art of dialectic. Only experts can talk about this. And you're not an expert. You need a PhD. And by the way, who do they give PhDs to? If the titles are given, title of Pope is given to people who already believe Catholic bullshit, if the title of head imam or whatever that guy is given to people who already believe in Muslim stuff, if the title of head rabbi is given to people who already believe Judaism, if the title of head MAGA or head fascist Nazi is given by people who already believe in conservative Nazi shit, if the people hired to go on mainstream media are only given that position if they already agree with the billionaire sadists who are oppressing everyone. Could we also see that certain academic qualifications are only given to people who already agree with the ignorance of the people offering those positions? So what passes for knowledge is boring if that's how it works. So if that's the standard for participating in what we are all here to do, master understanding and cross the line from our beliefs and ignorance into intellect, and maybe even use that mastery of understanding to know the self. Necessary because if the highest experience is knowing and the self is beyond knowing, you can't learn about it from experience. It requires understanding. Then this is gatekeeping horseshit to say that an expert is the only one who can do it. Bollocks. Bollocks. Anyone is open to joining our community so long as you're genuinely interested in understanding truth. That's it. In perfecting and mastering your own self logos, to know the self, experience your higher states of mind, and get good at understanding, and also discover and purify or give up any false beliefs that get in the way of that. That's it. Just need a good heart and a good head. That's all you need. And the people who I've come across who have a PhD in this or that seem to be more entrenched in the beliefs that they had to demonstrate in order to be given that tick. Like, how hard would it be to argue a bishop out of Christianity? How hard is it to share the logos with any spiritual tradition? Hey, Buddhists, you know what you need? The logos. You know what makes your meditation hard? You don't address your path of logos and blocks. And maybe at the start of their Buddhist career, but if they've spent their whole life identifying it, they will speak in a way that Harry is demonstrating. I wouldn't know what sort of a person I would be or how I would be. What did he say? I wouldn't know. Get on here, sit down. I don't know what I'd believe if you were right and a different position were true. So, if anything, qualification in this or that field can be a hindrance, can be a added difficulty to overcome. Not always, but often. So the things that Aaliyah heard from her father, well, hopefully we can silence them. Howie for time. All right, we're under 2 hours, so maybe we'll go a little bit further. She did mention coffee, and we have that game. When she mentions coffee, we have a drink, and I'm out of coffee. So I'm going to take a small break to top up on the coffee, and we will see how the conversation begins with Aaliyah entering the fray. Be right back. All right. So, Aaliyah wants us to have a coffee before we begin. Would you order something for me to go along with the coffee? Oh. Well, I had a cookie too. Joseph. You know, that's a good idea. Hey, there's Euripides. Here's a Euripides. Whoops. Euripides? Damn it. Hi guys, it's me, Crazy Euripides. Hey Euripides, some baklava, please. And keep the coffee coming. Thanks. Say, Aaliyah, I'd like you to know that I can understand your position because I grew up with those too. And even so, I've seen you sitting in on a few of the talks. Interesting. So by the way, if he grew up with those similar positions, but he's been able to free himself from it through understanding, one significance about understanding over belief is you can pass it on to others. If what allowed him to free himself from his beliefs is understanding, then shouldn't you be able to help others reach the level of development you're at? Something to keep in mind. Some baklava, please, and keep the coffee coming. Thanks. Say, Aaliyah, I'd like you to know that I can understand your position because I grew up with those too. And even so, I've seen you sitting in on a few of the talks. So I would like to ask you, Aaliyah, about those aphorisms that you referred to. But first, I would like to know something more about why you are drawn to talks like these. Why is Aaliyah interested in these kinds of conversations, we can wonder. Aaliyah. I'd really like to think that something matters. I think I listen for it, but I don't trust what I hear because so much of what is usually talked about ends up being nothing other than comparing opinions about something that some expert has some answer to. Or worse yet, some reason for not talking about it. Maybe I can put it another way. What good is discussing anything if nothing I ever hear matters to me personally? Like, I don't have a stake in any system or political matter, except maybe in stopping them from turning the earth into a cesspool. Right. So we're all just, by the way, isn't that what we've been saying about modern philosophy? Just debating personal opinions? Nothing seems to matter. Nothing's about how we can address what's personally significant to us. And they're even not stopping the world from being turned into a cesspool by different belief-based groups. Joseph. Well, we do share some things, Aaliyah. I wonder if the biggest task in saving ourselves and our planet might not be to see may not be to see through the beliefs that prevent us from saving ourselves. So he said it in a weird way, with a negative. I wonder if the biggest task in saving ourselves and the planet, highlight that, is to see through the beliefs that prevent us from saving ourselves. Speaking of turning the world into a cesspool, we also have the impending Armageddon when these people play out their ignorance with nuclear weapons. And whether we would see if anyone saying that everything is relative, as we all sink deeper into that. Let me say that again. I wonder if the biggest task in saving ourselves and our planet might be to see through the beliefs that prevent us from saving ourselves, and whether we would see anyone saying that everything is relative as we sink deeper into that cesspool. So now I'd like to hear those deadly aphorisms you mentioned. See, Aaliyah begins by saying, why is it meaningful? Listening to experts debate their dumbass opinions because they've got a PhD, or because they've tricked themselves onto becoming a politician or religious leader, or they inherited $1 billion. Doesn't change anything, and the world is sinking deeper into a cesspool. So why does it matter? Well, Aaliyah says the thing that I care about is stopping the world from becoming a cesspool. And so Joseph is saying, hey, by the way, if you want it to be meaningful, how about this? Necessary to save ourselves and our planet is seeing through the beliefs that prevent us from doing that. And this belief you grew up with from your parents and your dad especially, I wonder if we're going to hear that as things get worse and worse, as humanity sinks deeper and deeper into that cesspool. He made it significant. That's why it's important and necessary to have a significant, meaningful goal that we seek. Otherwise, you can just dip out of a conversation, of the dialectic. All right. So those aphorisms have gone from being something that merely silences a conversation to being deadly, because the conversations that it silences are the conversations about saving ourselves and our planet. So it's all relative, or only experts can decide. Deadly catchphrases. Thank you, Joseph. So now I'd like to hear those deadly aphorisms or catchphrases or repeating slop you hear off your content creator that you repeat because you can't think for yourself, or that people repeat because they can't think for themselves. Let's hear them, Aaliyah. Sure, that's easy. I hear them all the time. When you string them all together, you've got the wisdom of the ages. It's all relative. Who's to say what's right and wrong? Every culture has its own rights and wrongs. Don't make value judgments. To each his own. And the cutest of them all, what's true to anyone is true to him to whom it seems so. So it all boils down to, it doesn't matter. But here I am, still looking for something that matters. I can come up with others, if you give me a little time. So these are the ones we've already been starting to glop. We've been starting to catch from earlier. It's all relative. Who's to say what's right and wrong? Every culture has its own opinions. Don't judge. Don't make value judgments. That's impolite or rude or disrespectful. To each his own. And of course, we had that one from earlier. What are you, the thought police? You're saying I can't have my own beliefs and opinions? And the cutest of them all. Whatever is true to someone is true to him to whom it seems so. And it all boils down to, it doesn't matter. So this worldview of it's all relative destroys meaning. No meaning. No understanding, no meaning. Why? Because without understanding, you can't meaningfully approach the truth and meaningfully address what's false. No meaning. And we did see this idea expressed in Socrates in the last book that we read, Socrates and Jesus, A Dialogue in Heaven. Socrates said, this is what I grew up with. And there were certain key events in Socrates' young life that led him to learning philosophy and the dialectic from his teacher Parmenides. That woke him up from this idea that it's all relative and meaningless to begin this journey that we're here to do. So thank you, Aaliyah, for phrasing it so articulately. And then I zoom in, and then I zoom out, and then we go, yeah. Do you want any more catchphrases? There's Aaliyah. No, Aaliyah. It looks like you have enough of them. You've been observing me from the sidelines, and I'm glad to see you've crossed over. It's good to explore these notions with someone like yourself. It is a way of testing our understanding. So we have been talking about this for a while. If life is not about debating your own stupid opinions or clip-chimping people, as we see people who are tied to a belief can't actually solve problems, conservatives don't offer anything good, capitalists are not solving the world's problems because they don't have any understanding. But what believers can do is bomb shit. So all conservatives do is complain. All the Jewish Zionists do is play the victim as they bomb people to death. Genocide children. So if that's the nature of human ignorance and the essence of the human problem, belief and how it functions, what we are here to do could be to share our understanding of our highest vision and ideas, not to win a debate or competition, but to test our understanding. We test our understanding, the person we're talking to benefits as well. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win. So it's good to, I'm glad that you're off the sidelines and you've crossed over. It's good to explore these notions with someone like yourself, and it is a way of testing our understanding. Another thing, if it should turn out that I need help, I might be able to call on Sophronicus. He's the friend of the owner that I mentioned. So Euripides, that hippie guy from before, he was the waiter. Sophronicus was the guy who gave the question, I guess. Okay, he's the friend of the owner I mentioned, and discuss it with him and his circle of friends. However, that's not likely to help me now, since he usually comes around later in the day. So let's explore together. With a name like that, I think I'm in for a surprise, says Elia. It's clear you've explored these ideas before, and probably many times. But what do you see when you test someone's understanding? That may not be easy to explain, Elia, but I'll try. Whenever it's possible to examine these ideas in dialogues, I find it rewarding because it gives me a chance to view them through someone else's understanding.
It's a win-win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win. That doesn't answer my question, does it? Well, what I find remarkable by going through dialogues like this one is that I can focus on what, to me, is mysterious. Making beliefs visible, understanding what maintains them, and what brings about their disillusion. So, making visible the unsuspected beliefs, understanding what maintains their existence, and what is needed to purify or dissolve them. You see, these ideas seem to possess such vast power over men's minds. Yet once they are seen for what they are, they dissipate like the morning mist. Isn't that interesting? What we are seeing as the root cause of all human problems and tyranny and injustice and enslavement and the destruction of our species and planet simply dissolves like that. Isn't that fascinating? The cause of all of this injustice and suffering we're experiencing and living through dissipates like the morning mist. Once they are seen for what they are. We don't have to do anything supernatural. We don't have to blow up anyone. We don't have to genocide anyone or nuke anyone. We don't have to blow up the world so Jesus comes back and fixes it for us like some people want or believe. Where they are seen for what they are, they dissipate like the morning mist. Isn't that a fascinating idea? Isn't that cool? I think it's pretty rad. But if there is one I can't resolve, says Joseph, then I always discover that there is something I overlooked in that very belief, perhaps in the way it was put, or in the manner it was being held. Now, to the extent that I was unaware of it, I too held the belief. When this happens, I am interested in discovering why I held to it and why it escaped my notice. So this is the win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Of the dialectician. if the belief that is being discussed and occupying a person, the psychic parasite, the T virus, the zombie virus of a belief, isn't being dissipated, then there's more to be seen. Which means, if there's one I can't resolve, I like that, there is something I overlooked in that belief. Either in how it was put, the way it was put, or the way it was held. And to that extent that you are unaware of it, you too held that belief. So you're helping yourself at the same time. When this happens, I'm interested in discovering why I held to it and why it escaped my notice. So what about it was appealing or seemed true or necessary or attractive, and why you were blocked from seeing it. As a result of that belief not being dissolved because there was more to be seen, meaning it was affecting you too as a dialectician. And if our job is to go through this process and make visible our beliefs, understand what maintains them, and purify ourselves from our beliefs, then this activity of the dialectic can surface what we've yet to see. Which might make sense of why we've come across several times. In order to fully purify your pathologos and reach the self, you need to function as a dialectician and share the art with people who are into it. Get them off the sidelines and into the conversation. It's a win-win. Isn't that interesting? Yes, it is interesting.
Oh, very handsome and or pretty.
Thank you, but that wasn't the question I asked.
That one's perfect and exactly the case.
Thank you, Emma. All right, Aaliyah. I can't say you aren't optimistic, Joseph. Equally, I can't say your answer was good enough for me either. What did she ask? What do you see? What do you see when you test someone's understanding? That's very interesting. I asked Pierre a similar question once. Anyway. Not good enough. But I don't know what else to say. Anyway, I'll try to do my best. And either way, it seems I can't lose. Or, as we say on this channel, because we have a sound drop for it,
Win, 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 win.
no losing. Now that we are going to explore this position, we must come to an understanding of just what are its parts and what binds those parts together into a whole. Let's write that down. Oh, we've already got it written down. So these, we've been talking about today and in the last few episodes, the structure of thinking that we have to practice and test. As our purpose as human beings. But the terms that populate these categories, we've had a look at as well. Because we were looking at how Harry uses certain terms, and Aaliyah pointing out certain aphorisms or catchphrases as well. But the terms that we use takes us from the personal opinions to the transpersonal or objective or universal realm of mind and self. So we looked at the self-logos terms, or the selfers you could call them. We've identified 3 categories. Why? Because if understanding has its model as mind, experienced as ousia, the mind knowing itself, the penultimate spiritual experience, the words that we use to describe it, well, it's a oneness. It's a unity. It's a great oneness. It's also a goodness. You experience reality or the truth. So these are words used to describe this. And within these major categories, we have a set of terms that we always make use of when we think or understand or even experience anything. And we're seeing that now. Whenever you want to understand or experience something, are you experiencing a whole or are you experiencing a part? Or is it a whole of parts? Is it a part of a whole? That thing, is it the same as a different thing? What way is it the same? What way is it different? So these are the objects within understanding, or the oneness, team oneness. So you might even represent, if you wanted to, the three primary aspects of our psyche. We have our heart, our head, the ruling term that seeks oneness or unity through understanding, through reason and understanding. Go over a little bit. When we talk about the soul, we're talking about a unity of these primary psychic functions. You want to understand things, right? Isn't that motivating you? You want to understand how to do a skateboard wheelie? Nollie? You want to understand yourself? You want to understand reality? Reason and understanding. The ruling term. And if it's the ruling term, we could say the virtue associated with that is what color? This one. Wisdom. By the way, if you want to learn more about the virtues, you can check out books 3 and 4 of Plato's Republic. Make sure you're reading the Balboa translation, otherwise you're not going to be finding the right words. You have a heart. That propels you, motivates you to seek your goals. And by the way, when you seek your goals, you don't want to be scammed. You want the truth of what you seek. You seek truth. To seek truth and give up what's false that you may have clinged to requires a courage that Harry might not quite yet have, which is why he's on the cuck chair. Don't say cuck chair, chat. That's bad.
Wrong. You're so wrong. I'm just asking for some
Goons of gooners.
Queen of gooning.
So courage is the virtue associated with outward moving. To seek the truth with courage. And of course, we have a belly. A belly. Belly button. We seek for ourselves inwardly our own goodness. Now, the virtue of temperance is to make sure that what we desire for ourselves, temperance. I don't know if I spelled temperance. Temperence. Temperance. ANCE. To keep your cool, temperance. To keep your cool and make sure that what you desire for yourself inwardly your goodness, so we can say our reason and understanding seeks oneness. It desires oneness. What we seek outwardly is the truth, and what we seek, what we desire inwardly. Innerly. So our reason, our seeking, and desiring, the three primary aspects of our soul, each with their associated virtue, and of course, doing all of them at all times, your intended function at all times, justice. Giving us the four virtues. Oh, hang on a second, another set of four, leading to a ultimate goal of phronesis. The virtue for which all these virtues can be traded in for. We won't put that up there right now because that's just pointing out another set of four members within an ultimate. Four members within an ultimate. Or that for the sake of which. Four members within an ultimate art. So what? Well, isn't it interesting that we have three primary forces within guiding our body within our soul, and it's the word soul refers to those forces, and the key words that can be used to describe knowingness, oneness, truth, goodness. There's our wisdom experience that we fall in love with, therefore giving rise to philosophy or love of wisdom. And if we break down each of these ideas, oneness breaks down into these pair of terms. So the virtue of wisdom or reasoning and understanding, we see Joseph employing at the beginning of the dialectic with Elia to explore the idea. Let's understand it as a whole and its parts. So while we're looking for the key words that he's using, the structure that he's using, also looking for the key words of the false belief to do with it's all relative, we can also see that these key terms that we use in understanding can direct the conversation as a whole, because you can explore the whole and the part of an idea. How is it the same as other ideas? How is it different? What is it like? What's it unlike? Is it unlimited or is it limited? Is it at rest? Is it in motion? Is it out of time? Is it in time? And there are probably others. And the key words that we might explore. Hey, by the way, was it a just idea? Is it a beneficial idea? Does it allow for the excellence? Does it allow for beauty? These are monads or single ideas, not pairs, within goodness. And by the way, if we can determine that there is a realm of what's false, ignorance, beliefs, including this particular belief, and there is the greater experience of truth, we need a principle. For just as there is oneness, there has to be a higher principle of one. Just as for this shirt to have blackness, there has to be a principle of black. For there to be a goodness that we use to describe the penultimate or mind, there has to be the idea of good. And for truth to exist, the principle of true. So while these are the key ideas and to describe mind, or the penultimate experience of nous or knowledge, or the highest reach of the intellect that this it's all relative blocks us from, what's its cause or the self, we use these three key ideas here to talk about the self. By the way, if you are familiar with academic philosophy, these are called Plato's forms. They're not forms. As we can see here, these three key words, oneness, goodness, and truth, are used to describe mind or being, or the intellect, not running a space. All right. And within these captains of the teams or leaders of the set, intellect, they have their members, then we can recognize that these are all aspects within mind itself. So the fact that we have these Lego pieces or parts or self-logos terms for understanding and for reality, they don't live in separate filing cabinets in the cloud somewhere. Their source is pure intellect. They're the objects of understanding when taken as parts. They're the aspects of knowing when taken as a whole. Therefore, in the realm of mind, it's the whole of knowing or nous or ousia, mind knowing itself, and its parts, what we use in understanding or the dialectic we are mastering. The word is eidos, which means aspects. They're not forms. That's a ignorant language of physical world perception used to misunderstand actual philosophy. One of the great betrayals from academic philosophy against true philosophy, our human purpose, tradition, and necessary art. So these are the eidos, or if you want to personify them, that's the gods. The gods or theology is a personification of these eidos within being. Why gods? Oh, because they're eternal. Because it's being. Out of time. Out of time. Out of time as the gods, as the eternal principles. So therefore, these are the universal principles that we need to look to organize our soul and organize our society properly. universal principles that applied universally to universally benefit. There's our catchphrase for true government. This is where they exist, that we can apprehend with understanding or wisdom and reason. So this experience of mind or being or intellect or the model is out of time, therefore it's the gods. Oh, but it's also the paradigm for everything in time. Therefore, organize our society or our spirituality or our souls around it. It's perfectly at rest. And yet it's motion itself. It's knowing itself at all possible ways, in all possible moments. That's why it's a completely blissful and beautiful knowing experience. It's completely unlimited. Infinity in all directions. But it's completely self-contained because there's nothing outside it. So it's most unlimited and most limited. What are we seeing? This experience of knowing uses the highest possible language, the self-logos terms, in the highest possible way. Out of time, in time, in the highest way. Completely at rest, but motion itself. The most unlimited and the most limited. See, it's all of these together. That's why they are aspects of a single beholding experience, not forms, eidos. And also helping us understand why understanding is necessary to go beyond this peak experience, because if this is the peak experience, the highest oneness, the highest goodness, and the truth of mind or being, whatever is its cause, the self, must be beyond experience. Therefore, the absolute necessity to reach our goal, to know the self, the absolute necessity for the dialectic that we're learning. So that's the importance of what we're going through right here. Allowing us to purify the ignorance that we are going to do specifically, but in doing so, learning to master the understanding required to address that ignorant view that it's all the false belief that everything is relative, which we can then use to apply to, so freeing us to be able to know the truth of reality or beauty or justice. So we can throw reality in there. The goodness, the monad. So we can be open to have that experience. Hey, all this stuff, if Aaliyah believed all these catchphrases or aphorisms from her father, that she wasn't good enough, it's all relative, she's an expert, give up. She can't believe all this shit from her dad that she had to believe to survive her childhood, by the way, so we're not blaming her. It's understanding the root cause of all human problems, not blaming humans for having problems. That's the game of belief and tyranny. Can you see why she can't simultaneously believe these things and experience goodness? If she's saying she's not good enough, how can you unite with goodness itself? This isn't a physical thing. You're not unifying with it because you're occupying the same space and time, like getting inside a car. It's mind, meaning your quality of mind determines whether or not you can participate in mind or the highest reach of intellect. So this purification of her false belief that we are about to see unfold, that we all must master and go through, if you want to be a good person, remove your problems and fulfill your purpose, purifies what's false, allows for a participation in what's truth, goodness, and oneness of mind, but also because we are learning the method that Joseph is using as well, we can even apply it to that experience to go beyond experience to know the one self the good self or the true self, which is our ultimate goal. And you can only get that through understanding necessarily because it's beyond experience. Therefore, if this is wisdom, the experience or ousia, and the understanding or logos of this, philosophy, love of wisdom, represents therefore the crossing of this line into the knowing of intellect and the understanding of it as well. Need both. Crossing this line, as we just described, to what is beyond experience requires understanding. Therefore, philodianoia, the love of understanding, is greater than philosophy. Philodianoia is a greater art than philosophy, and the true art we're here to master. And to do that, we better love understanding. And thankfully, Aaliyah does love understanding enough that in spite of her parents, in spite of her dad's catchphrases that undermine her, in spite of her culture or whatever, in spite of having this less than ideal boyfriend, she's still interested in these conversations. She's still listening in. And now, thankfully for us, she's off the sidelines and she's in the conversation. As Joseph says, it's good to be able to explore these ideas with someone like you. And as Joseph explores it with such a good person, better than Harry, it seems, let's follow his arguments, learn them for ourselves, see if we can purify any influence this, it's all relative, dangerous, what was it, deadly? Deadly belief has on us, and master the art that we need to master as humans. Dialect. And already we're seeing him opening with whole and part. So maybe we can see if there's an order that unfolds. Is it the same order up here? Should we rearrange them? Whole and part seems to be first. What does he do next? So we're learning the arguments, we're purifying by listening to the arguments, but we're also learning to understand the thinking behind the examiner. Not the examiner, thinking behind the dialectician. Because if we can follow the structure in his thought, we can do it ourselves. And that seems to be the point. So, exciting? We might have what we need to master this art we're here to do, and get all that goodness that comes with it, both within our soul and our soul's journey through this lifetime and maybe many others. Or maybe if we learn, as he said, once it's seen through sufficiently, you are free from it. It dissolves. Could we free ourselves from a reincarnation down to this world filled with ignorance that's descending into a cesspool? By completing this work, mastering the dialectic? Will it give you something less boring and more fun to talk about with your friends over coffee? And will it work on Aaliyah? Can we learn it ourselves and see the structure so we can practice it and become, well, Hellenic or philodianoia, lovers of understanding? So we have our map, we have what we're looking for, we have the stakes, and everything we need to jump in and do what may be the meaning of life for human beings. Next time. I hope you're having fun. By the way, I hope you're paying attention to your dreams, because if you're practicing remembering your dreams by recording them as soon as you wake up, transcribing them in whatever way you do, you can use tools that do it quickly, and wondering about it, maybe this very process that we're learning of the dialectic to explore ideas, you can also apply to exploring your dreams. If there's a single activity, or as we said before, justice to do your intended, to desire a single thing that you also seek outwardly in your activities you do with your friends or watch this channel, and we're learning to master reasoning, then all three aspects of our soul can be unified on a single task that we can do at all times, because you're always thinking, you're always acting, you're always wondering, hopefully. Justice. Putting us in a state of justice. If that's the case, then wouldn't it follow that the most meaningful activity, according to Socrates, understand your dreams, would be that same activity? Who knows? So as we learn the structure of exploring ideas through the dialectic, maybe you yourself can find a way of applying it to your dreams. There is no handbook yet written for how to apply the dialectic to understand your dreams without interpretation. It's not dream interpretation. That would just be reflecting your own dumb beliefs back to you. What a waste of time that would be. Dream analysis. There's no book on it, which means, hey, as you figure out a way of exploring your dreams through this dialectic method that we're learning, maybe you could write the book. And if Socrates is saying this is the greatest thing you can do because it allows a direct communication with your own guide, hey, that would be fantastic for you and for humanity.
It's a win-win-win.
And a win-win-win. So, something to keep an eye out for as we learn next time. But the more you practice recording your dreams and listening to them and transcribing them, the better you'll find yourself remembering them. And if you want, you can set an alarm to go off every 2 hours during the night, because that's when you have dreams within like a 90-minute interval, so keeps them fresh. So yeah, exciting for next time. Oh, what an adventure we're going on, and super meaningful. So even someone who's much better than the dopes out there like Aaliyah can find this a meaningful, exciting activity and entertaining activity to engage in. So if you're someone excited by this, you're one of those top tier peoples out there. And maybe giving us an insight into how to understand our own dreams. So, or our night dreams, our guide. Exciting, exciting, exciting. I hope you're excited, and I hope to see you in the next one. Find a PDF to the text below, follow on Twitch, join the Discord, donate to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.